So Bambu Labs has seemed to have stepped in it big time with free and open source software, specifically Bambu Studio. Now, Bambu Studio is a free and open source software. We'll get to that in a minute. So basically what Bambu Labs has done was forced a firmware update to their printers, which the printer firmware is actually proprietary software. And basically what this firmware update did was lock down their printer so that they had to have authorization from the Bambu cloud before that printer will work. And then they wrote a proprietary cloud module and basically made Bambu Studio require that this plugin be running inside of it. Essentially, this makes Bambu Studio function as proprietary software, even though it being free and open source. So basically, they have taken all this code from the community and now is locking out the community from using it unless you're using their proprietary module. And we'll get to the specifics of that in a second as well. But first, let's go ahead and go to my screen right here and take a look at this right here. This here is Bambu Studio. Of course, as you can see, it is published under the AGPL, which is a free and open source copyleft license. And copyleft is very important here. And of course, down here, they further expound on what license they distribute it under. And copyleft basically means that if you create a fork of this, you have to distribute the code and all modifications to that code. And yes, forking this software is allowed because it is free and open source software. And that is what this user essentially did. This is Jacques Powell, I think is how you pronounce that. And he made Orca Slicer Bambu Lab. And basically what he did was rewrote the software to take the requirement for that proprietary module out and to use local network authentication again, because that avenue was still available in the firmware through some particular avenue. And he basically made local network access available again. Apparently, Bambu Labs sent him a cease and desist. Basically said, you're violating our licenses, you're violating our proprietary nature of our binary, which I don't know how he didn't distribute the proprietary binaries and stuff like that. And basically what he said was that they were impersonating Bambu Studios. I don't know what the hell that means, because it's free and open source software. You're allowed to fork it. And it says it bypassed the authentication controls, violated their terms of service. And I don't know how that is, because their terms of service, at least according to Bambu Studios, is the AGPL, which is right here. Okay, so, and then involved reverse engineering, I don't know if that's true, and could allow modified forks to send arbitrary commands to printers. Isn't that what forking software is supposed to do? In other words, they want to just basically make Bambu Studio, a free and open source program, function as proprietary software, which the AGPL doesn't allow. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at this number 2 right here. Bypass the authentication controls. And we're going to go right straight into the GNU AGPL right here, and go straight down to section 3 of the terms and service right here. Okay, section 3, I'm looking for it right here. And we're just going to go ahead and zoom right in on this. So I can read it too. Okay, section 3, protecting users' legal rights from anti-circumvention law. No covered work shall be deemed part of an effective technological measure under any applicable law fulfilling obligations under Article 11 of this particular copyright treaty in 1996, or similar laws prohibiting or restricting circumvention of such measures. When you convey a covered work, you waive any legal power to forbid circumvention of technological measures to the extent such circumvention is affected by exercising rights under this license. with respect to the covered work. And you disclaim any intention to limit operation or modification of the work as a means of enforcing against the work's users, or third parties' legal rights to forbid circumvention of technological measures. So how I understand this is they aren't allowed to send him a cease and desist letter because he circumvented their authentication controls and bypassed the additional locks. They're not allowed to under the AGPL. That's specifically spelled out. So this whole thing about violating their terms of use, that's bull. I don't know if he actually reverse engineered anything. Basically, the way I understand it is he just forked this code right here, which is AGPL license. He's allowed to do that. He modified it to send different commands to printers. That's what the fork does, and that's what forks do. And I don't know what impersonating Bambu Studio is, because Bambu Studio is open source and you're allowed to fork it. So this is complete and utter bullshit. Excuse my language, but that's what it is. And now we're just going to go ahead into another video. And I am going to link this video and down in the description so you can watch the whole thing. We're only going to watch a few minutes of it, so I'm going to go ahead and put on my headset right here. Now this video is by Leonard French. He is a copyright lawyer, and he actually went over some of this, and I'm just going to go ahead and watch this video. We're only going to watch a couple minutes of it because we're not going to go through the whole almost 20-minute video in this particular video. But we're going to go ahead and see what he has to say about this.
Prusa Research. Prusa was forked into Bambu Studio. Bambu Studio was forked into Orca Slicer.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, that's correct. Just forks upon forks.
Every layer of that tree is licensed under the GNU Afro General Public License version 3, the AGPL. The AGPL is what is known as a strong copyleft license. It is designed to be viral. The core rule is simple. If you take this open source code, modify it, and either distribute the result or offer it as a network service, you are legally required to make the corresponding source code for your modifications available.
That is true. That's what copyleft means. Let's continue.
You cannot take community code, build a closed wall around it, and call it proprietary.
That's what Bambu Studios is trying to do, by the way.
In December of 2022, Bambu published an official blog post titled AGPL Compliance of Bambu Studio. They claimed full compliance.
Bullshit.
Their argument was that their closed networking plugin, the binary that talks to their cloud and now to their printers, is distributed independently and remains totally separate from the open source slicer. The community did not just take their word for it. In May of 2024, a Norwegian developer named Roy Sigurd Karlsbach published a technical analysis of how the plugin actually loads. The slicer pulls the plugin in at runtime through a specific function called dlopen, and the mechanical function of dlopen is where Bambu's argument runs into a wall, because dlopen is not two separate programs waving at each other from a distance. It loads the closed source plugin directly into the open source application's memory space. They share control flow, they execute each other's functions. The closed plugin in operational reality is plugged directly into the open source code's central nervous system.
So basically what this plugin does, in layman's terms, is it depends, is Bambu Studios is written to depend on this particular plugin, and it executes as part of the program. It's not like a separate program that's just waving and making a remote connection or something, or it's connecting to a driver that's outside of the program. It's executing as program, and that's not allowed in the AGPL, and he's about to go ahead and get into that real quick.
The AGPL's text contemplates exactly this. The license's definition of corresponding source expressly includes, and I'm quoting, shared libraries and dynamically linked subprograms that the work is specifically designed to require, such as by intimate data communication or control flow.
Okay, and that is actually in section 6 here. Let's go ahead, let's bring this up, zoom right in for a second. That is right here in section 6D with corresponding source and all of that. That's right here. I'm not going to read it all, but I will link to this license so you can read it for yourself. But corresponding source is required to be open source as well under the AGPL. So since this plugin or module is a dependency of Bambu Studios, that plugin should not be proprietary. It should be open source.
Flow. Intimate data communication. That language was not in the license by accident, and by Carlsbach's reading, Bambu's networking plugin sits exactly inside it. It gets worse. In February 2025, GitHub issue number 6307 was filed against the Bambu Studio repository. The user pointed out that the changelog for Bambu Studio version 110.0276 referenced a new authorization and authorization protection mechanism, the very lock Bambu had used to shut Orca Slicer out, but the corresponding source code for that mechanism appeared to be missing from the public repository.
That's not allowed, like we just went over.
That is not a Section 13 network service question. That is a Section 5 modified work question.
Section 5 right here. I believe he's referring to Section 5 of here, conveying modified source versions right here. So what he's referring to is this particular one. And yes, that plugin is part of the modified source, so it should be open source. It depends. Basically, what he's saying, since that plugin is a dependency of this particular fork of whatever slicer they're using upstream, that their plugin should definitely be open source and not proprietary.
And withholding the source for modifications to AGPL code is a textbook violation.
It is.
The standard response of all of this is yes, but who can actually sue? Historically, only the original copyright holders have standing to enforce an open source license.
And that's the problem with this, is that like the conservators of the licenses typically can't sue Bambu Labs, which I think is wrong. I think that they should be able to enforce the terms of their licenses if they choose to use their licenses as to license their products. But I think there needs to be a precedent set there. But like I said, I'm not a lawyer. None of this is legal advice. So, but yeah, that's a problem.
The original Slicer authors do not have the war chest to drag a multinational corporation into federal court.
Yeah, and basically now he's just going into who has standing and all that stuff. I will link this video, like I said before, in the description, so you can watch it all. But yeah, he basically said Bambu Labs has violated several terms of the license they chose to license Bambu Studios under. Full stop. And Louis Rossman was who I originally heard about this problem from, and he did one video a couple days ago about this. I'll link that video down below. I'm not going to watch it here. But then also today, I believe it was today. Yeah, was it today? Yes, it was today. Another little response here, and we're going to go ahead and watch it. And I will warn you, he does have a little bit of language here. I'm not going to censor it. So if you're offended by strong language, I'm sorry, but I'm just going to play it as is.
The overwhelming support that he has from the members of the community if he goes through with this decision. So here's what I'm asking all of you. If Powell were to keep up his code, if he were to put all that stuff back up and tell Bambu Labs to go fuck themselves, how many of you would offer up your own money to help him set a precedent? Unlike the person who removed their Mazda code from Home Assistant after Mazda went after them, unlike the developer that removed their code for Haier air conditioners after Haier went after them, that were sick and fucking tired of people going after developers that simply allow you to get back access to what you bought and paid for and use it in the way that you were able to use it when you bought the goddamn hardware.
Okay, and that is the problem here. A lot of independent developers often don't think they have the resources to fight the big companies like Bambu Labs, and they take down their code like this. Okay, and they don't fight it when they could actually really fight and win. Probably even a simple letter saying, hey, under the terms of the license that you post with this software, I'm allowed to fork it, and you're not allowed to sue me under Section 5 of your under Section 3 of your license, rather, because you gave up your right to sue against digital locks and anti-circumvention. And if you had a well thought out letter and sent them and just simply said, because of this, I don't want to hear from you again, they would probably back down because they know they don't have a leg to stand on. And matter of fact, he stated right here, when he asked them to clarify what he actually did to violate terms of service, they didn't respond with any specifics. They just had a broad, sweeping language from it, and basically they've intimidated big companies like this that use open source code, just intimidate small developers because they know they don't have the resources to fight.
In my opinion, you bought it, you owned it, and you should not have to deal with any of this type of legal crap for simply making something that allows people to use what they want, to use it in the way that they want it to. I think that their legal claim is bullshit. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm willing to put my money where my mouth is. And here's what I'm asking of all of you. How many of you, if push came to shove, if Bambu Labs was fucking stupid enough to actually take the garbage case they had that, again, I promised I wasn't going to share it with you, so I'm not going to share it with you right now, but if they would take the garbage case they had to court, how many of you would be willing to put up $1, $2, or $5 to defend Powell? I'm willing to say 10,000.
As far as I know, Rossman has a non-profit to defend stuff like this. And I would highly suggest that you donate to it if you really want to see this case fought. I think that this particular developer right here that developed that fork right here, I think that he should put his code back up and fight it. I really do. Or transfer his code to someone else who's willing to put it up to fight this.
That's it for today. And as always, I hope you learned something. And if you're watching this Bambu Labs, go fuck yourself.
And that is the correct answer to Bambu Labs on this.
And if you're watching this Bambu Labs, go fuck yourself.
Go fuck yourself. Have a nice day, everyone.